Hello, YouTube. Happy New Year. How are ya? What did you do today? Today we did some errands and then pretty much just chilled. We're both back at work not until January 6th. So we had a really nice long break. It's been really nice to just do things like go to the movies, we hang out, watch movies, watch tons of hockey because the World Juniors are on, and that's been really fun, and lots of NHL hockey as well. And it's been really awesome and really, really fun. And for those of you watching World Juniors, did you see that Canada lost to, oh my God, Latvia? Yeah, Canada lost to Latvia, which was a really big upset apparently. And then Latvia beat Germany. And so Latvia's in the quarterfinals, which is pretty exciting. Canada lost to the United States, and Canada's playing Czechia in the quarterfinals, which I didn't watch the whole tournament, but apparently Czechia is really, really good. And they're playing Czechia, and the US is playing Switzerland. So, just in case you were wondering, and then there's lots of NHL hockey as well. Hey, Lisa, Happy New Year to you too. For those of you who are at my other Mount Everest video, we did a quick introduction to the mountain, how tall it is, the other peaks that are 8,000 meters and above in the world. There are only 14. We talked about high altitude sickness, what can happen to your body when you are above 8,000 meters or in the death zone. Then we talked about the traffic jams that occur right near the top of the Mount Everest summit and why they're so dangerous. Today, I'm really excited. I was just curious, how do people actually get on the mountain? How much does it cost? What do they have to do? What kind of permits or applications do they need to submit to actually get on the mountain? I'm thinking, who can actually afford this? Maybe people are going into debt in order to climb the mountain, but I thought this would be a fun thing for us to learn about together today, and I hope you enjoy the video. So this is the first page. It's from Green Valley, Nepal, Trek and Research Hub P Ltd, whatever. And we're looking at Nepal Peak Climbing Permit and Fees 2025. Mount Everest there's two sides of Mount Everest in Nepal and then in Tibet. We're looking specifically at the Nepal side, an extremely high level overview of Nepal law, like high level basic laws for getting on the mountain, who's allowed to be on the mountain from the Nepal side. Hey Tori, lovely to see you. Nepal, known as the land of the Himalayas, is a premier destination for climbing, featuring some of the world's most famous peaks like Mount Everest, Annapurna, and Lhotse. Its diverse landscapes and rich traditions provide the perfect backdrop for a thrilling rock climbing adventure. We don't need to read that part. Nepal climbing permit fees for 2025. So this is very, very recent. Official authorizations known as climbing permits, granted by the Nepalese government, enable individuals or organizations to legitimately try to reach the top of designated peaks in Nepal. These climbing permits are essential to control climbing operations, protect climber safety, control environmental damage, and assist nearby communities. The money received from permits helps to support conservation initiatives and upkeep of the area's infrastructure for hiking and climbing. And when we were talking about the traffic jams near the summit of Everest, one of the arguments was that the Nepali government is providing too many permits providing too many permits, and that they need to be a bit more picky so there are less people on the mountain. We already read that part. There are several types of climbing permits in Nepal. There is an exhibition permit. They apply to peaks above 7,000 meters, such as Mount Everest and other larger sized peaks. The expedition permit for Mount Everest is 1,000 USD, and it varies by peak, weather, and number of climbers. A restricted area permit is issued by the Department of Immigration for cultural or environmental reasons. The National Park and Conservation Permit brings national Park and national area permits are issued by the Department of National Parks and Wildlife Conservation, like Sagarmatha National Park for Everest or Annapurna Conservation Area for Annapurna. Generally, it costs you 20 USD to 30 USD. Trekking peak permits. Trekking permits should be in the altitude range between 5,800 to 6,500 meters from the Nepali Mountaineering Association. It may cost approximately 500 USD. And local community fees, like the Kambu Passing Lamu Rural Municipality, will charge you 20 USD to start your trekking journey in the Everest region. Oh, water went down weird. So already there are several different types of permits that we need. Looking at this now, it's a little bit unclear whether we need every single permit, but it seems, climbing permits are required so tourists can avoid legal problems while promoting responsible tourism in Nepal. So please correct me if I'm wrong. If you know about mountaineering, if you know about the laws in Nepal regarding Mount Everest, please correct me if I'm wrong. But according to this site, it appears that a climber needs to get all of these permits, I think. The cost for the climbing permit has significantly increased to $15,000, up from the previous fee of $11,000 for foreign climbers and $75,000 for Nepali climbers. Additionally, new regulations require death repatriation insurance with minimal coverage of approximately 37,500 USD. So you have to pay, and there's going to be more fees associated with the $15,000 one, but then you also need a climbing permit on top of that, which is a huge charge. And this is just one of dozens and dozens of costs to actually climb the mountain, which we'll see in a little bit. Factors influencing Nepal peak climbing permit cost. Altitude and difficulty level of the peak is a significant factor. Climbing peaks over 8,000 meters comes with higher risks and logistical challenges, significantly increasing permit costs. The price difference between these and lower peaks reflects the difficulty and danger involved. Mid-altitude peaks for mountains between 7,000 and 8,000 meters, permit fees are moderately priced. Although these climbs will require substantial gear and training, they are more affordable compared to the highest peaks. Trekking peaks under 7,000 have lower permit fees due to their simpler routes and less technical climbing requirements. Obviously, Mount Everest is the high altitude peak, and we'll see, I don't know if it's this page or another page, the huge price difference for the permit for Mount Everest versus even K2, the second tallest mountain in the world and generally considered to be the most dangerous one to climb. So I'm just surprised because they make it seem like the peaks 8,000 and above are all going to be generally the same price, but they're not. And seasonal variations. During spring and autumn, when weather conditions are optimal, permit costs are generally higher compared to the off-season. Climbing during off-season, such as winter and monsoon season in Nepal, comes with lower permit fees but increased risk due to challenging weather conditions. It is advisable to avoid these seasons if you're planning a climb in Nepal. So you can, if you want to save some money, you can go in the off season, but it's going to be extremely dangerous. This could be a whole video on its own, the different kinds of weather events that could occur up that high. I watched videos about people, they called it snow blindness. It's kind of obvious in the name, but let me just Google it. Snow blindness, or I can't read that word, is a temporary eye pain and discomfort after exposure to too much ultraviolet light. It's like a sunburn on your eyes. What is the meaning of snow blindness? It's usually not serious and will heal on its own within a few days. Snow blindness is just one of the things you could experience. Avalanches, incredibly high winds, a dangerous level, a dangerous speed. just horrible snowstorms. There's a lot that can go wrong on the top of the mountain in bad weather. Here are the comparisons for the permit fees. So this is the old amount because now it's $15,000 for the permit. But I just found this so interesting. It's let's just say 11,000 because that's what they're showing here. 11,000 for two Mount Everest routes, and then this would be K2, which I talked about a little bit, and it's 1,800. So I don't understand. I don't understand why it's not that much lower than Mount Everest, but it's so much cheaper. Yes, it may be. You're right. You're right. Okay, thank you for that, because I'm going to talk about that later, about the different types of treks, or I guess they're treks that you can do, because not everyone intends to reach the summit. Lots of people just want to get to the base camp, but you're right. You're right. So maybe we do not need, if we're intending to go to the summit, we don't need wherever the fuck these pyramids are. You know what I mean. You guys were here. Thank you, Lisa. You're probably right. And then you'll see all of the other 8,000-meter peaks seem to be 1,800. If you know a lot about Mount Everest and you say you're into mountaineering stuff, why is Mount Everest so much more expensive than the other 8,000-meter peaks? I don't really understand that. Then look, even these ones that are just under 8,000 meters, right? Barely under 8,000 meters, their spring cost is $600 compared to 11,000 or 15,000 for Mount Everest. Look at this. So these are all 600. Excuse me. And these are significantly into the 700s. They're not just below 8,000. Sorry, not 700. They are significantly below 8,000 meters, and these are all 500. All of these are 500. These are the lower peaks below 7,000 meters, and these are all $400 during the peak season for climbing. Look at all these. This is all in Nepal. That's so many mountains. And then this one's 400. Less than 6,500 meters, except for trekking peaks, $250. Peaks that don't require climbing permit cost. These ones are all 5,700 meters, 5,500, 5,600. All of these you can climb for free, but it's still high enough that I feel like you should. I don't know the laws around these ones, but you probably are still required to have a guide of some sort with you. And then I don't know what these are, but Mountaineering Association Group A peak climbing permit fees. I don't know if you apply as a group, perhaps you get cheaper permit costs. So these are all $250. Group B permit climbing costs. These are all 6,000 meter peaks. These are $250, $400. Everest climbing permit for Nepalese people above 8,000 meters. So I'm not sure how that compares to USD, but NPR 75,000 and then 60,000, and K2 is 10,000 NPR. I think people are more impressed if you say you climbed Everest as it's the most popular one. The government is probably trying to maximize their revenue by charging the most for Everest. Yeah, because it's not even the hardest one that we've learned, right? The routes on K2 are incredibly dangerous. I was watching a video today, I think it was Annapurna, that has an outrageous death to climber ratio. Please, I'm going to Google it. I remember it at 30%. Annapurna death to climber ratio. With a fatality rate of 32%, approximately 32 Annapurnas sees approximately 32 deaths per 100 successful summits. The mountain's treacherous south face poses significant challenges, including avalanches and difficult ice and rock sections. Interesting that I remembered that properly. My point is Mount Everest is not the most dangerous one. It is the highest one, so perhaps it's the most dangerous one because it's so high, right? And yeah, they're maybe it's a combination of they know people are gonna pay $15,000 USD to climb it because it's so popular, and also it's so high, so it does pose some level of danger, level of interest and skill, perhaps. Do you mean required to climb those mountains, right? Level of interest required to climb the lower level 8,000 meters? If so, that makes sense, right? Let's go back up to these because we know K2, this one's hard. This one's really hard. The one of the most dangerous ones. And Annapurna, the one we just learned with the 30% death rate, is 1800. It's just crazy to me. Crazy. Interesting though. Okay. Here's this. We're not going to go into huge detail about this because I have other pages I want to talk about, but here's a step-by-step guide to the application process. Research your climbing destination and season. Choose a registered trekking agency. Prepare the required documents such as your passport, medical certificate, and insurance. Submit the application and letter of intent. Pay the permit fee. Receive your ascent license. Your trekking agency will issue an ascent license. Verify all details, including your name, peak, and expedition dates. Obtain additional permits, such as permits for national parks or conservation areas. Get a trekker's information management system card if required. Join pre-trek briefings to review the route, safety protocols, and permit details, and start your climb. Here are the required documents. You obviously need a passport photo, Nepal visa. We'll talk about medical certificate in a second, and you need travel insurance. You need a payment receipt for your permit, emergency fund details if there's unexpected emergencies during the climb, additional permits if applicable. There is a waste management deposit, equipment declaration, emergency contact information, and we'll go through the additional costs. As the garbage deposit stuff, a topic on Everest could be a whole other video in itself. You could do lots of research and have a really interesting discussion on that on its own. So I'm just making sure. Okay, share this tab. So here's some requirements for climbing Mount Everest. This will be a quicker page. Can't believe we spent 18 minutes on that one page. I wanted to show this because there seems to be more requirements on the Nepali side versus the Tibet side. We already know that you have to secure a climbing permit. This is very small. Let me zoom in. Visitors can apply for and purchase a permit to visit Everest Base Camp for a specified number of days. Or am I? Sorry. However, if issued this permit, the holder is restricted from traveling past Everest Base Camp. This means no climbing the Khumbu Icefall into Advanced Base Camp. Yeah, you can get a permit just for Base Camp and no higher. To complete the Khumbu Icefall, the Nepali government, Nepalese, not Nepali. I'm sorry, I was calling it Nepali. The Nepalese government also issues permits for climbers who only wish to visit the Khumbu Icefall and experience this kind of mountaineering at a lower altitude. If issued this permit, the holder may travel to and from Advanced Base Camp and Base Camp as part of a private team or a commercial expedition. Many commercial guiding... My phone's vibrating. It's just reminding me of my stream. Many commercial guiding companies offer expeditions to Everest Camp specifically to climb the Khumbu Icefall and go no further. These commercial expeditions are relatively inexpensive when compared to a full summit expedition. A Khumbu Icefall experience runs at around $5,000 versus $65,000 for the summit expedition. I want to show you Khumbu Icefall. It's lovely. It looks so pretty. I'll show you. It's lovely to look at, but it's dangerous as fuck. Obviously. Excuse me. Here are some pictures of the Khumbu Ice. I'm so sorry for coughing into the mic. That's so terrible. So yeah, this is someone crossing a crevasse on a ladder. You see ropes attached there. He's in his crampons. Here's another picture of the Khumbu Icefall. Oh, this is a good one. So here's base camp at 5,270 meters. And then Khumbu Icefall seems to be right in the middle of base camp and camp 1. And then camp 2, camp 3, camp 4, summit at 8,850 meters. Here's another picture. Isn't that? It's so beautiful to look at from afar, but so dangerous. And that could be another video on its own. Yeah. So you can buy a permit just to go to Khumbu Icefall. Yes, exactly, Lisa. Beautiful, but scary as fuck, and I'm never doing it. I told my dad that I went down a Mount Everest rabbit hole, and he goes, "No, you're not thinking of climbing Everest, are you?" I'm like, "Hell no, I am not climbing any mountain, no matter the size. It's just fascinating. It's so fascinating." And there's a whole ass mountaineering Mount Everest community on YouTube, and it's been very fun to learn about. And of course, the summit climb permit is issued to climbers who have intentions of climbing past advanced base camp. It's the same whether the climber plans on attempting a summit climb or just like to acclimatize and get to know the mountain before a future expedition. We already know that it costs $11,000 or $15,000 now USD. And you also have to expect fees for a liaison officer, trash, and local agency facilitators, which could add an additional $10K to your bill. This is the interesting part why I wanted to talk about this page. The government of Nepal ruled that all climbers seeking to climb Mount Everest must have previously climbed Nepalese mountain with a height of 6,500 meters or higher before obtaining a permit. Climbers must also submit documentation certifying that they are in good health and physical fitness as determined by a medical health professional. Climbers are required to undergo a basic training session for good mountaineering practices and high altitude climbing techniques. And that's all fine and dandy, but I feel like there's a big difference between 6,500 meters and like 8,800. Did you guys hear that? Why my husband's computer is making some noises. Sorry. It's kind of pretty, and it's always surprising when his computer just goes ding and makes pretty noises. But big difference between 6,500 meters and 8,800 meters. But although you do need to have a high level of fitness to be able to climb mountains of 6,500 meters, but I think very few people have the physical ability to climb to the summit of Mount Everest. And yeah, I don't know what my point is. You have to be very fit to climb 600-meter peaks, but it doesn't mean you can climb 8,000-meter peaks. That's my point. Oh, I live in Washington State, where Mount Rainier is. I have hiked there a lot, but I've never been tempted to try to climb to the summit. Let's see. Mount Rainier. How do you say that? Rainier. What is the altitude of that? That's really cool that you've climbed that mountain so much. Altitude. It says 4,000 meters. Oh, elevation 4,392 meters, which is definitely, you're not going to experience what we had in what we looked at in my other Mount Everest video. That is definitely high enough to feel significant altitude sickness. And it looks like a lovely mountain. Let's look at the pictures. Let's share the screen. Make sure there's nothing weird on the page. This is it, right? It's like Rainier. Oh, that's lovely. It's so big. Cool. Well, I love that you've hiked that. And yeah, very cool. It's very high. And like this is half the size of Mount Everest, and look how high it is still. Wow. If you come across this video later, have you climbed any kind of mountain before? And what was the elevation? How high did you get? Have you summited any kind of mountain of any altitude? I'd love to hear your experience. And then you need to purchase rescue insurance. This is a special type of travel insurance that covers emergency rescue and evacuation from the mountain in the event you get injured or fall ill. The cost is relatively inexpensive when compared to, for example, a helivac to Everest Base Camp, which costs $10,000. There are reputable companies that offer quality travel insurance. Global Rescue offers comprehensive travel insurance packages for a 12-month enrollment of an individual for an expedition lasting up to a period of 90 days. The total cost is just about $429. Hi, PH Actress. I don't know if you're here for the last stream or if you've seen it, but last stream I did a video on Mount Everest. We did a quick introduction to the mountain. We talked about what can happen to your body when you're at 8,000 meters and above, and the Mount Everest summit is 8,800 meters. And then we talked about the traffic jams that happen right at the summit of Mount Everest and why they're so dangerous. And now we're looking at the actual cost of trying to climb Mount Everest because it's incredibly expensive. Yeah, so nice to see you. Happy New Year to you. And in Nepal, they're required to hire a local Sherpa guide for their expedition. Hiring a local Sherpa guide will run at about $4,000. And they also help curb possible mishaps that come with having inexperienced climbers on the mountain. So we're going to go into detail about the costs. But that's why I wanted to talk about this, because of the rescue insurance and the experience prerequisites. It sure is. You should Google Khumbu Icefall Mount Everest. It's so scary and so dangerous, but it's beautiful. So we're going to go into more detail about how much it costs to climb Mount Everest. I need to zoom in because I can't read this. I'm just going to text my husband who's in the other room. 1 second, please. Sorry, I shouldn't be texting, but okay. Climbers can expect to spend anywhere between $33,000 USD to $200,000 depending on the type of expedition, what is included in the price, and the level of luxury expected. The average price for an expedition to Mount Everest in 2024 is $59,000, and the median price is $51,000. However, when private trips and flash expeditions are removed from the equation, both of which are considerably more expensive, the average price falls to $53,000, and the median price to $50,000. That's still a lot of money. Even if it falls, that's still a lot of money. Prices at a glance. Here are some different guiding companies and the prices according in 2024 in USD. We'll just look at a few of them. 14 Summit Expeditions, $33,500. Please remember this is in addition to your different permits that you need. This is just the expenses we've learned so far, the different permits that you need and permits, what is it? And insurance. You need to have rescue insurance, and that's all we've learned about so far. So keep that in mind. 360 Expeditions, Sherpa for pretty much 45,000, Adventure Alternative 55,000, Adventure Consultant 73,000, Ascent Himalayas 45,000, Asian Trekking 36,000. Climbing the Seven Summits, 65,995. So this Furtenbach Adventures Express, this seems to be very expensive. And then Signature, the prices are 113K versus 216K. And yeah, you can see these prices. I'm not really sure what an express expedition means, but it's expensive. Says with Lhotse, that's one of the other tallest mountains. Not sure if it includes a trip to Lhotse or a summit attempt. But this is just the guides. Remember, this is just the guide company. And here's a description as to why prices change from one year to the next. Let me blow my nose. I need a drink. According to Pansang Sherpa, the managing director of Kathmandu-based Pioneer Adventure, changes in permit fees, government taxes, logistics costs, inflation, and the season in which the expedition is held all determine how its price will change. If cost of the above-mentioned factors increases or decreases, there will be possible changes in the final costs we offer to our clients. Caroline Pemberton, the managing director of Climbing the Seven Summits, added that mountaineering exhibitions in the Himalayas tend to increase in price incrementally each year. People can expect climbing in the Himalayas. Okay, we just heard that. I need to take myself off camera for a second. Just for a second, and then I'll put myself back on. And apparently the Furtenbach Adventures that we looked at, that was 113K and 200K. Even though they're the most expensive, the prices for those remained the same despite the cost of running the expedition, the increased cost of running expeditions, and they cover most of the loss themselves. So really, when you are charging 100 and 200K for expeditions, you are not covering the cost. Like, you're not breaking even on that. So logistics. So what contributes to the price of an Everest expedition? I can't say expedition. There you go. Logistics only guides offer the bare minimum and are best suited for experienced mountaineers who are willing to take on Everest on the mountain's own terms. Very few people are cut out for this type of expedition. Most climbers who choose the logistics only option to climb will spend between $32,000 and $60,000 depending on the type of expenses they incur along the way. By law, we already learned that every foreign climber in Nepal is required to hire a local Sherpa guide. Logistics only option means that climbers must arrive at Everest Base Camp on their own and would later hire a local company to provide all the necessary camping and cooking gear, as well as support staff for the summit ascent. The journey of getting to the Everest Base Camp, though, it takes weeks and weeks. And I feel like your average person is not going to be able to navigate that terrain and figure out all those logistics on their own. So I agree, like very few people could do the logistics only option. I've heard that going cheaper on a guide company may not be a good idea. You wind up with less experienced guides and lower staff to climber ratios, which can be dangerous. And I saw that some of the companies located in Western countries, they require their guides to have different certifications, which is not necessarily the case in like for local Nepal companies. But yeah, really good point, Lisa. Sorry, texting my husband back. So it's probably very tempting to go for a cheaper company because you don't want to go bankrupt to climb Mount Everest, but it's not very smart to do that, like Lisa said. Here are the costs associated with traveling to Everest Base Camp. Look at this picture. Wow, and look at all the mountains. Climbers traveling to EBC on their own should expect to spend up to $10,000 from their point of origin to the base camp. Before arrival, climbers will need to obtain a Nepali visa and the necessary immunizations, which cost $125 to $225 respectively. The next step is to fly to Kathmandu, which can cost anywhere from a few $100s to more than $7,000, depending on the airline and how many layovers are involved. Once in Kathmandu, climbers who do not have an approved COVID-19 vaccine will take a mandatory PCR test. From Kathmandu, climbers can expect to spend anywhere from $300 to $500 for round-trip tickets to and from Lukla. To save some money, it is possible to take a bus to Jiri and trek 5 days to Lukla and then on to EBC. From Lukla to Everest Base Camp, climbers can expect to spend between $400 to $1,000 per person for food and lodgings. The amount spent will depend on the quality of places in which the climber stays. It's possible to save a bit of money on this step by camping in approved places instead of staying in tea houses. Climbers also need to transport all of the gear to base camp. The combination of yak and porters usually does this. Climbers can expect to spend between $20 to $40 per day per load for yaks and $20 per day per porter. The total cost of transporting gear usually comes out to at least $1,000. My point of this, it's never-ending costs. And this is, I think, people who are getting to Everest Base Camp on their own. So this is without a guide. Getting them to Everest Base Camp can expect to spend up to $10,000. That's crazy. I don't know anyone who comes across this later. Do you happen to know how much having a guide would cost to get you from, is it Kathmandu or Lukla? Yeah, so you get round trip tickets from Kathmandu to Lukla, and then there you can either take a bus or so you fly to Lukla. And if you don't want to fly to Lukla, you take a bus to Jiri and then trek 5 days to Lukla and then on to EBC. If you have a guide for those in-between times, how much would that cost? And do expedition companies offer guides to get people to Everest Base Camp? And then permits and insurance, we already learned about this. We did not learn about the cost of a company to organize the permit. That's required by Nepalese law, which is $2,500 per expedition. It does not include the cost of a non-refundable trash deposit, $4,000, or the payment for the liaison officer, $3,000 per team. When all is said and done, climbers will spend about $20,000 before setting foot in Nepal. We didn't learn about evacuation insurance. You have to buy a minimum of evacuation insurance. Many others require medical insurance too. Trip cancellation insurance is also a smart investment in case the climbing season ends abruptly due to natural disaster. It is very difficult to give price estimates to insurance as they are highly variable and depend on age and trip length. However, expect to spend from $70 to $5,000. So this is a close-up of the crampons. I talked about the ladders. This is over top of the crevasse, which let's Google image it so we can see. I think I tried to do this in my last video and it wasn't letting me. Everest crevasse. Did I spell crevasse wrong? Probably. Oh my goodness. Some of these are crazy. Here's an example. No, that's a video. I don't want to do that. So this is what I mean by crevasse. So see this. See how deep that is? Ugh. Why am I talking about crevasses? Oh yeah, because I was just talking about the crampons and the ladders that people use. So what we looked at was the ladder that's across the crevasse. See that there, and then there's ropes. People climb over the ladder with their crampons, and people fall. People die in these. People die in these crevasses. Those are people in a crevasse right there. Oh, this picture is just so terrifying. Can you imagine doing that? Look at this fucking massive crevasse. And this person is like upside down because they slipped crossing the ladder. Look at this picture. That's outrageous. Oh, can't imagine. Look at this. Oh, makes me nervous just looking at it. Hello, Neil. Just finished some indoor cycling and forgot your stream is happening. No worries. We're just looking at how much it costs to climb Mount Everest. We've learned about different kinds of permits. The climbing permit that for the Nepal side of Mount Everest, it went from 11,000 USD to 15,000 USD. What else we learned? We're going to learn about the cost of equipment. We're learning about how much it costs to actually get to Mount Everest base camp, and about food, and you actually have to transport all of your supplies to Everest base camp, and that is a whole other expense. Point of this video is it costs a shit pile of money to get to Everest base camp and to actually summit. Climbers heading to Mount Everest should expect to spend up to $30,000 on gear and supplies on Everest expedition. And supplies during an Everest expedition. $30,000? Ma'am. This includes about $5,800 for food, fuel, and a local cook for a 6-week trip. While $5,000 can be saved on the cook, it is generally a good idea to hire one. Virtually all climbers, 97%, require supplemental oxygen for the ascent, which costs $550 per bottle. Most climbers will require at least 5 bottles, along with a mask and a regulator for the ascent and descent, totaling $3,650. Sorry. Strong and experienced climbers may opt to haul their supplemental oxygen up the high camps on the mountain, but many will use Sherpas instead. Furthermore, it is customary to provide Sherpas with supplemental oxygen, which will cost an additional $2,000 because they use less oxygen. If you're using a local guide to bring your oxygen up, you need to be buying them oxygen as well, which makes sense. Buying all the proper mountaineering gear will cost... What? Didn't they just... Oh, they were saying $30,000 for supplies and equipment in total, because now they're saying boots, crampons, suits, clothing layers, gloves, sleeping bags, backpacks will cost you about $7,000. But I guess they meant this whole category is about $30,000. Let's calculate it. I'm a little bit confused by that. So $5,000 for food, fuel, and a local cook. $5,000. Oxygen will cost you, oxygen and a mask and a regulator will cost you about $3,650. The oxygen for your Sherpas is $2,000. Boots, crampons is $7,000. Okay, I'm not sure why they're saying 30 because this person because I just calculated it all. You can't see that. $17,650. Either way, it's a lot of money, but the $30,000 doesn't make sense. We're almost done. All-inclusive guides. Many climbers will opt to avoid all the headaches and paperwork involved in a logistics-only climb and instead opt to pay for an all-inclusive expedition. We already know this. They cost anywhere from $30,000 to $100,000. We already looked at this. The median cost of expeditions is almost $40,000. The mid-range to book a Western guide service. The mid-range option is to book a Western guide service that employs a Sherpa guide. The median price for these types of exhibitions is almost $48,000. The main difference between going through a Western company that employs local guides or Nepali operators is that the Sherpa guide will have a partial, we'll look this up after, UIAGM certification, usually without the ski touring part, which is more expensive than a non-certified guide, but less expensive than a fully certified Western guide. The most expensive option is the Western Guide service with a Western Guide, which has a median price of $65,000. This option includes all of the aforementioned costs from the previous sections. While it is the highest price, there are certain advantages of traveling with a Western Guide. All of these types of agencies will have an IFMGA UIAGM certification. This is likely to increase your chances of making it to the top and minimize the risk involved with climbing at extremely high altitudes. I'm going to stop sharing for a second and click this link to make sure it's nothing weird before I share it. Oh man, I shouldn't have clicked. It got out of my share. I shouldn't have done that because then it's annoying to get back on. I don't know which one. I don't want to join the mailing list. So, International Federation of Mountain Guides. The organization was founded in 1965 by a group of representatives from Swiss, Italian, Austrian, and French mountain guide associations. It is composed of 26 different associations from more than 20 countries spread across 5 continents. The goal of IFMGA is to create a uniform set of standards and training for mountain guides across the globe to follow. The IFMGA trains, coaches, and instructs guides in the 4 main disciplines of mountaineering, those being rock climbing, ice climbing, and ski touring. The organization also lobbies federal governments on behalf of mountain guides and works to promote their general and economic interests. And so we learned if you go through a Western company that employs Nepalese guides, they don't have this one. Let me go back. They have a different certification, which is... No, I don't want that. The UIAGM certification, which is what? What is the UIAGM? I was just here. What is the UIAGM certification? Okay, whatever. It doesn't matter. Why do I need to hire an IFMGA guide for trekking and hiking? Why should I hire a certified guide? Mountain guides will keep you safe. They know the best routes. They can help you with the logistics of your trip. What does this mean? Guides can arrange transport from a nearby city or town to the start of the trip, provide you a packing list of what to bring, help you rent equipment locally, and arrange accommodation before the trip. If you're traveling to a region where you do not speak the local language, it is immensely helpful to have someone with you who does. They help you improve your skills. Most guides receive their IFMGA certification. They have made hundreds of ascents up a variety of different mountain peaks and terrains. Moreover, they have learned and honed plenty of different vital mountain skills and techniques. They make for great travel companions. So, like Lisa said earlier, you can opt to pay for a cheaper expedition cost, but that means you are not getting a certified guide. And we've just read lots of benefits of of having a certified guide. They know the best routes. They have lots of experience on different types of terrains, and there's never a guarantee, but you are more likely to get to the top of the mountain that you are trying to summit with a certified guide. No worries, Lori, and we're literally done. I'm so sorry, but it's so nice to see you. I hope you had a good New Year and a good holiday. Thank you for joining. What we learned today, we learned that there are extraordinary costs to getting to Mount Everest Base Camp, especially if you're wanting to summit. You have to get a climbing permit if you're summiting. It recently increased from 11,000 USD to 15,000 USD. There are significant costs associated with actually getting to the Everest Base Camp. You have to pay a Sherpa or a porter to transport your supplies to base camp, or you have to pay to have a yak transport it, which is a significant cost. You have to pay lodging to on your journey to base camp. You have to pay for food, you have to pay for fuel, you have to pay significant costs to an expedition company. You can get them cheaper, but you shouldn't, because there are significant benefits of having a certified guide with you. There are requirements for different types of insurance, like evacuation insurance, rescue insurance, medical insurance. You will pay you spend tens of thousands of dollars on your mountaineering equipment. What else? What, did I miss anything? Any other costs for permits and insurance, traveling to Everest Base Camp? I don't think I missed anything. I think I got it all. Yeah. So that was all I wanted to talk about. I want to talk about how fucking expensive it is, and how many people I wonder how many people there are who are fit enough, who are mentally strong enough to climb to the top of an 88,000 meter peak, and who are also have the money to do so, who can spend tens of thousands of dollars to attempt to summit Mount Everest. And I've seen people in YouTube videos who have tried to do it multiple times, but their expedition is cut short because of really dangerous weather. And they'll go back the next year, and keep trying to find the exact perfect weather window. And I'm just thinking, how many are those people spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to attempt to climb to the top of Mount Everest? We also learned how interesting it is that the other 8,000 meter and up peaks aren't anywhere near the cost. The permit is not anywhere near the cost of Mount Everest. Mount Everest is 11,000. It's when going up to 15,000. All of the other 8,000 meter and up peaks are $1,800 USD for the climbing permit. I've never had the slightest interest in mountain climbing. I am too lazy, Lori says. Same. And I told the rest of the group this earlier, Lori. When I told my dad I was going down the Mount Everest rabbit hole, he's like, please don't tell me you want to climb Mount Everest. And I said, don't you worry. I will never climb a mountain. It's just interesting. But I agree. Same here, Lori. The high cost is one of the reasons people keep going when they... Brilliant point. That could be another video topic. I keep hearing, I'm just going to put it into my notes. I keep hearing it brought up in the videos. Summit fever, where people literally climb over dead bodies and people who are freezing to death to get to the summit. People are ignoring warnings for dangerous weather. People are ignoring the fact that they have missed the time deadline for getting to the summit, which is 2 p.m. for Mount Everest, and they just keep going even though they know that they could die or that they don't have the skills to make it to the top, but they do it anyways because they have summit fever. So that's something. And also cost. Yeah, I already spent $75,000 in total to get to the summit. I will not turn around now. Oh, I love that. That's such a good point. Mount Everest topics. Love that. Thank you, Lisa. So that's all I have for today. Thank you for listening to me ramble about how much it costs to climb Mount Everest. I hope you guys are all doing really, really well. I hope you had a lovely holiday season and a great New Year's. I appreciate you all listening to me talk. I hope you have a good evening, and I will see you next time. Bye.